And I was stuck at that point making $300,000 a year, and I couldn't get past that. It started with Grant. He introduced me to Brad. Brad introduced me to Ty Lopez. All these people, I created a relationship with them, which opened up so many opportunities for me.
All right, I've got the man, Albert Preciado, with me. I got the pleasure to meet this guy a couple of weeks ago, actually. He picked me up from the airport when I was going to interview Liver King. It picked me up in the Rolls Royce and drove me around town, and we had a great time hanging out. I got to see his office where they got a few hundred real estate agents, and he's got a massive mortgage company and doing great things on social media with his driven community. And, you know, now he's here in Vegas. Come to check my stuff out, man. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
And you got chauffeured by Brad Lee here.
Yeah, it was a cool experience. Yeah, I got picked up in his F8.
Okay.
His F8 Ferrari. So he dropped me off, but he dropped me off in the wrong building. so it's the building next door. But I asked him, "Are you sure this is the building?" He said, "Yeah, I'm sure." I said, let me double check. Are you 100%? He's like, "Yeah, I'm 100%. So I went up there. He said, "Just go to the second floor and you're going to see Ryan there. And you're going to see like Pineda this, Pineda that."
Yeah.
He has a bunch of companies. So I went in there, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
So I'm like, am I in the wrong building? So then I figured it out. I just walked,
You walked
across
over.
the street. Yeah, I was here, but
Brad's a character, dude. He was just here a couple of weeks ago.
yeah, he was like super confident that was the space.
Yeah, because he was just here. But that doesn't surprise me one bit about Brad. Just ultra confident in the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But he's a character. His episode was one of the funniest ones I've ever done. And it got a great reception.
I saw it. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. So for these people who don't know who you are, man, give them a little context.
So look, Ryan, I like you. I got to know you a lot more, and I think we have a lot of similarities in the fact that like you're Filipino American, I'm Mexican American.
Yeah.
And we started young. So I think the biggest lesson that we both teach a lot of people, besides the branding and getting in social media, is that like we're young business people. Like we got into business, and I invested a lot of time and money into mentorships.
Right. So
a lot of mentors in the past, they helped me with business. And one of the first ones we were talking about him, Grant Cardone, like I went to an event he had in Cancun a while back, like 8-9 years ago. And that was his first event. And there was 40 people there.
What'd you guys do? Like, what was it for?
It was the first 10X. So it was the first 10X event. It was called 10X Your Life, I think. But it was like the first 10X event, 40 people, maybe 35. So I found him on social media on Instagram, and he had like 40K followers, I think, maybe less. And I went there with my brother, and because we both followed him, and then that's where I met him. But I found out about him with his audiobook, the Sale to Survive.
Oh, Sale to Survive.
Which was the original one. I think it was called not Sale to Survive, but Sale to, it was that book, but the original one. And I read it.
Be Sold? Was that it?
I think it was actually Sale to Survive. That was the first one.
Okay.
But I read the audiobook, and then I found out about him. So then I went to the seminar, and I went there, and I was stuck at that point making $300,000 a year. So I was making $300,000 a year. This was 2013-ish, around there. And I couldn't get past that.
This was in mortgage?
In mortgage, yeah.
Okay.
So that's my core business, my first business. I've been doing that for 20 years almost. And I went there because I was stuck at 300K for a while. You know, when you're making 280K, then 290K, then 300K, then again 300K, and you're just kind of stuck right there.
Right.
And you can't figure out how to scale it. So I went there because I heard of the 10X and everything. So I went there, and then he just told me something very simple, like, build your army, which made a lot of sense. But you see any business that's successful, you see the army. Like I come in here and I see you have an army.
Right.
It's not just Ryan, but people know Ryan, people know Grant, people know Albert. But I went there, and then I went back and I started to build my army. But then I started thinking, wait, I'm just hiring people, and I have no clue what I'm doing with my business. Like I have no clue who to hire first, what to do. So then that's when another mentor that I spent a lot of time with about 8 years ago, Patrick Bet-David. I saw
before he was very big.
Yeah. I have a cool story about him too. So I hired him as a mentor, and I paid him very little. I'm not going to say the number because I want to respect his privacy.
All right, you'll have to tell me off camera.
But Patrick, me and Patrick are friends till this day, and he and I paid him very little for 4 sessions, so four 1-hour sessions.
Yeah.
And to me back then, that was some money because I was broke. I was, even though you make good money, you spend all of it to continue to run your business. So I paid him. And I paid him half, and then the other half I paid it after. But I went and visited him and then I found out he was in Dallas. So I went to Dallas, his first office in Dallas, because he had moved out from Glendale because we were local. He was in Glendale, but he just moved to Dallas. So then I went there, and I said, well, you know what? I'm building my army, I'm scaling it, but I have no clue what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And when I met him, I think I was at I doubled it to like 600, 800,000, getting close to $1 million. And that's gross. That's not net. So that's gross. So it's nothing. I was negative because I was spending more money than what I was making. So then he sat down with me and he broke everything down. And he's the one that introduced systems and operations.
Right.
So with him, I learned systems and operations, and with Grant, I learned like invest in real estate, which I did, which is what saved me when I bought those multi-units. But then he also told me build your army. So when I combined both of them, that's when I was able to make it work and get past the $1 million. Back then. But that's how I started. And I think for everybody that's watching this, that's a young entrepreneur, millennial or younger, is that you have people like Ryan, you have people like Patrick, but David, like Grant, like a lot of you guys, like I like Alex Hormozi too.
Yep.
But we can all learn from those people. It makes it so much easier, and you save a lot of time so that you don't have to make those big $1 million mistakes, which I don't know if you made big $1 million mistakes.
Oh, many. Yep.
But it's okay to make the small mistakes, I think, but the $1 million mistakes that could put you out of business, and if you don't have properties to save you or money to save you, then it's going to be very, very painful, and you might not be able to recover from it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I had my first like massive mistake at the end of 2018. Going into 2019, I had 70 house flips going on. And, in 2018 was my first year making over $1 million. And, I ended up making all this money, but then I had all these properties that I'd overpaid for because I was just betting on appreciation. Because 2018 was the first time I really saw massive appreciation in one year. And then they raised rates at the end of 2018, and the market slowed down tremendously. And a lot of these deals went upside down. And, I ended up selling them all off, and, I paid all my investors back, but I personally lost $500,000. And I was in a very big cash flow crunch, even though I had made all this money, because you're not expecting to go lose $500,000. You're going into this expecting to go make $1 million.
Yeah.
And, that was a big lesson for me about all of that. Fast forward this year, the market shifts again. And when you're flipping houses, a lot of times you can't predict it's going to change like that fast. A typical house flip, even in a good market, might take you 3 to 4 months. And when you get something like this, where things change so quick because they raised rates faster than ever, a lot of the houses we bought now don't look so good.
Yeah.
And we have about, 40 to 50 flips right now. And there's a bunch that will lose money. And, we'll see where the numbers end up coming in at. But I wouldn't be surprised if, combined all of them that are losers lose us over $1 million. Like that's probably what will happen. And, we still have winners in there. We're still getting deals, right now. But to your point, because we have been building up rentals over these years, one of my plans are, because I have multiple businesses, it's not, I'm not going to get rocked from just this one loss, but I also can go sell off some of my rentals that have all this equity to kind of offset those losses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest lesson? Do you feel like you learned a lesson right now with what happened, or because you made your first million in 2018?
Yeah.
So it's like before 2018, did you have another kind of lesson that you went through?
I would say before like that $500,000 lesson in 2018, probably the biggest lesson I learned up to that point was I was just scared to take action and spend money.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of the opposite of you. I never went and got mentors right off the bat. I was cheap, dude. I was like, hey, I'm going to just figure this out myself. I'm not paying anybody. I'm not, going to spend any money on marketing. I'm going to get all my deals for free. I'm going to go hunt in the MLS. I'm going to go meet wholesalers and realtors. And I did that successfully. But the moment I started spending money on marketing, on mentors, on events and everything else, that was when I got over $1 million for the first time.
Yeah.
And like that was a mistake not doing it sooner, because I was just like cheap and prideful. I'm like, dude, I don't need to do any of this.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you held a little bit, and then 2018 you made your first $1 million. Now, right now you're going through this challenge, if we could call it a challenge.
100% it's a challenge.
So a lot of people, I think, and it relates to the mortgage industry and the real estate industry, but I'll focus on the mortgage industry. But the mortgage industry and the flips, I noticed that in the flipping game, in the flipping business, a lot of people try to do. Everybody was a flipper. Yeah. Like everybody wanted to do investments. Everybody wanted to flip, and it was very easy at one point. Kind of like crypto. I'm not an expert in crypto, but if you got into it 2 years ago, you were making money because it was just easy. Like my daughter that's 6 would make money if she got into it. If she flipped a house, like you picked any house, right? You made money.
Yeah.
Now it's not like that. And same thing with mortgage. If you got into mortgage right during COVID, a little later, you made a lot of money because the rates went down to a 2%, 2.5%. So what I noticed is that everybody thought they were so smart, and everybody thought, you know what, I'm going to go open up a mortgage company because it's so easy and I'm going to make so much money, because they were counting that it was always going to be like that. And same with the flips. People thought it was always going to be like that. And I think the biggest victory for people that went through this and are still gonna make it through this and are not gonna give up is that they learned they got experience, and they learned so much from this experience, so that next time when it happens, because it will, you're gonna know what to do.
Right.
How do you feel about that? About the comparison, like the mortgage industry and the flipping industry?
Yeah, no, 100%. Right. And it's honestly any industry. If you started business in the last 2 years, it was the easiest time ever to make money. They printed more money than ever. Everyone's happy. Everyone's spending. Everyone feels rich. And so for us and all our businesses, I'm not going to lie, it was like, oh, people will buy anything we sell. Like everyone is feeling good.
Yeah.
And now you can feel everybody's tightening up with their money. And whether that's they think the real estate market's going to crash, so they don't want to buy a home, they don't want to get a mortgage, whether it's investing in themselves, whether it's paying for some kind of service, whatever, right? Like in recessions, things get tighter. And so one thing that I have learned over the years is that, when things are good, like obviously enjoy them and capitalize and like really double down when they're good. But the transition of when things are bad is the hardest part. And that's when everyone gets rocked. If you can't make it through the transition, then you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
And if you can make it through the transition while everyone else kind of gets wiped away, when you come out of it, dude, it's like lights out.
Yeah.
And I've been telling a lot of our students, I'm like, hey, we made the switch 6 months ago to go try and predominantly wholesale. So we stopped buying as many flips. And this was before things started changing, because I kind of like started to notice things were shifting. And, I said to our team and just all of our students this month in December, I was like, guys, the next like 4 months or so are going to be very hard.
Yeah.
And you guys, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just going to be super difficult. Not only are we going into the winter where things are always slower here in Las Vegas anyways, traditionally November, December are the slowest months with real estate.
Yeah.
And so we got to deal with that. We got to deal with the rising rates. We got to deal with the recession. We got to deal with the economy. So like this is going to be the hardest 4 to 6 months you've ever been through. And I think that's true. And I think that things will ease up in April, but we still got a few more months to go of this transition period that's really hard.
Yeah. You know what I feel really helped me a lot, Ryan, was my experience in 2008. Do you remember 2008? Where were you at?
I wasn't in business yet. I was in my freshman year of college.
So in 2008, I go through the recession that happened, and I'm in mortgage. So I get into mortgage to 2005, and I have 2 years that are like amazing. I'm killing it, making money. I'm 21 years old, and I'm making a lot of money on mortgage. And then that's when I get into all these. I was the youngest one, so I was the youngest one. I'm kind of like my millennial years are very. I landed right on the right spot because 1983. That's when I was born. So I'm young enough to have went through 2008, but I'm also young enough still to now go through this one. And then what happened a couple of years ago with COVID. But in 2008, I'm 2 years into the mortgage industry. I'm making a lot of money. And then I get into bad habits. So I don't know if you ever went through this, but since everybody was older than me, back then they were doing a lot of partying, a lot of women, cocaine. And I started partying a lot. I started going out with a lot of girls. I was spending more money than what I was making. And then they were always offering me cocaine. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, try this. Hey, try this. So I go over a year and I keep saying, no. Finally, one day I try it. Mm. And then for 1 year, I kept doing it. Mm. And it was always like the weekend thing.
Yeah.
So I was making money and I was so lost because I was just partying my life away and my money away. And then I saw the recession coming. So it was almost like, you know what? This is the end. So I might as well
just have fun
and spend the rest of it. So I went through it. And then what happens is that I lose everything. And I remember like, I don't have any more money. And then all the girls they're not important anymore. And then there's just one girl that I want to get back because I lost everything. They locked my door. So they changed the locks. My dog's stuck inside. So I had to go and call the police department so they could open it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was going to do that. And I call my girl and I tell her, one of my girls, which, and it's up to be my wife now, Sylvia. But I call her and I tell her, hey, you know what? I need to get picked up. Like they repossessed my car and the S550 Mercedes that I had. And I don't have a house. So I need you to pick me up. And I was hoping she would say yes. So she picked me up. And then I remembered I had to make a decision. What am I going to do at that point? Am I going to stay in the mortgage industry when there's no business right now? Banks are not funding loans. This is when Countrywide went out of business.
Yep.
And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I decided to stay in the business. So I went to pick up my old car, which was a Ford Explorer. And I lived in that Ford Explorer for 2 months because my family always told me, don't get into real estate, Albert. They used to call me Alberto because that's the Latino way of saying it. Alberto, no te metas in real estate. So don't get into real estate. It's dangerous. It's not going to work. And I didn't want to go back and be like, damn, everybody was right. So then I stayed in the Ford Explorer. And for 2 months, me and Sil used to sleep in that Ford Explorer. So what we would do is we would just go and park the car in different safe areas. So it wasn't that bad. We still went and just parked in a nice area. And then we would sneak into the gym because we've always been into the gym, eating healthy and kind of doing our thing healthy wise. And then we would go to Starbucks and work. We had a laptop and our phone. That's all we kept. And then from there on, we stayed in the business and slowly it started picking up. But one thing that I learned at that point was besides stated income loans, you could do FHA loans, you could do full doc loans, but nobody was doing that. I got into the business of just doing it stated, negative arm loans. Yeah, exactly. So slowly it picked up, but my income dropped from $264,000 to $60,000. So that was a huge drop.
Right.
And it was just not enough. But then the next year, it got a little bit better. Next year, it got a little bit better. And then from there on, I weathered the storm and I got better. And then one bank rep calls me one day and tells me, hey, Albert, why don't you get your broker's license? Because I was doing a much better like 5-6 years later. And I asked her, well, I never thought about it. So then she says, well, why don't you just get a broker's license and open up your own shop? And I told her, and I was just like, well, why not? It sounds like a good idea. So then I did it, but then I didn't know how to do it. And me just being, like thinking everybody is just nice. I call my broker at the time and I ask him, hey, you know what? I want to get my broker's license. I'm thinking about starting a business in the near future, not right now, but I just wanted to, you know, get your input on it. And just if you could guide me. Obviously he told me, don't do it. It's not a good idea. And so I had to figure it out. So I winged it. I Googled how to open a mortgage broker shop, and then I saw the number for the DRE. I saw like you got to open a corporation, and then you gotta combine them. So I did all that, but I just winged it. So I literally did it like the worst way you could start a business, and that's how I did it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You know, I think there's a lot that goes with that story. You know, you asked if I had been through anything similar, and you know, for me, thankfully, I never was into the drugs or partying. You know, I grew up in a Christian home and I was always pretty devoted to the faith. And so that stuff never really interested me. Like, you know, obviously I've been partying, I've been out, but I never got caught up in drugs or going nuts. And I got married super young. So, you know, the womanizing thing never really happened. I married my wife. We met when she was 18 and you know, we got married very young and we were broke. And one thing though, like I didn't go through the recession personally, as far as like I was making all this money and then I wasn't because I was too young. But I watched it happen to my parents. You know, my mom had been a realtor, and I would guess she was probably similar to what you were doing. She was making a couple $100,000 a year, selling real estate during that time. Everyone's buying houses, and I remember our family, we were living good. You know, growing up. And my dad had a gas station convenience store. And my entire life, since I was 8 years old, he had owned this store. And I remember going there, you know, eating hot dogs and like candy and stuff. And I just remember it now, like I can now think about this because time has gone on. But at the time when I was a kid, you know, I would always have like the nicest glove for baseball and bats and stuff. And people are like, dude, you guys are rich. And I'm like, I don't know that we're rich or not, right? He's just, but you know, in the end, I liked that they both, like we didn't have 9 to 5s where other kids' parents couldn't go see them or practice and they had to go get rides and all this. My dad took me to all my games because he was an entrepreneur. He had the time and flexibility to do it. And the hard part for me was, you know, in 2008, I watched him lose it all. Like I remember him saying like, yeah, the store's shutting down. And it just was like, I was 18, 19. And I was like, how, like the business is closing for good. Like it just didn't process. And my mom was like, yeah, like we have no money. And, you know, their house got foreclosed on, the house I grew up in since I was 8 years old, and we lost it all. And I'm off in college, you know, basically like, well, dang, I'm going to have to like live off nothing. You know, I'm going to have to live off my scholarship. And so, you know, basically for the 3 years I was in college was during the recession. It was 2008, 2009, 2010. And so I got really good at like living on nothing. And so, you know, to make a long story short, you know, I get drafted. My parents were hoping I would get drafted really high because that was going to solve the financial problems.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I got drafted way lower, and I only signed for $20,000. And I ended up giving my parents half of that because they needed the money. And, you know, when I went to go play, I was 21 years old and I was making $1,200 a month with no other job or income. And so I had to like train myself to live on literally nothing because I had no choice. It's not like I could go get another job that made money. It was like, you have to live on this to pursue your dream. And so I did. And in the off season, I ended up getting a job as a realtor. I got my license, and at the time I didn't know, but as you know, like 2010 was really hard to go sell homes and everything had dropped in value. So even if you did make a loan or sell a home, the commission was nothing. And so I didn't know any better because I never had been made like good money myself. I'm like, oh man, if I make 20, 30,000 a year, that's pretty good. I can live on that. And I did that for many years. My wife, when I met her, you know, I was broke. I sold her on a dream. I'm like, hey, I might get to the big leagues one day. Like this is it. We're going to be rich. But we were both fine not having money. She never had money, and we just were cool. And like over time, I never made six figures until I was 27 years old. And so I was basically living off nothing my entire 20s. And then I had success finally in business, and we were still super frugal. Like I was like living on still 40,000 a year.
Were you ambitious though or not?
I was ambitious to baseball. So what happened was I treated my work as like, let's just make enough money to get by while I pursue baseball. And so that's all I did. Yeah. And then when I retired, I was 27 years old. This was in 2017. I had made six figures for the first time, like in the beginning or the year prior, 2016. And I was like, dude, this real estate thing is going to like hold us over. Like we're going to be fine even after baseball. I don't need baseball to work out. We're going to be just fine. But once I retired, my competitive nature all of a sudden switched. It was like, okay, well, I don't have I spent my entire life to a craft and it didn't work out. And now I had all this free time. I had always had split attention. I was always half in baseball, half in other stuff. And so by the time I retired, I was like, all right, I'm going all in on business and I'm going to devote everything with discipline, work ethic, drive to go in and dominating business.
Yeah.
And like, I made it a goal. This was in 2017. I retired. I was like, I'm going to be the best, like most known house flipper in Las Vegas. And I think I accomplished it in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
When all these other guys had been doing it their entire career. Cause nobody was willing to do what I was willing to do. And like, even when I got into YouTube in 2020, all these other real estate guys were like laughing at it and like, TikTok, why are you on TikTok? And I was like, because I'm going to be the most known real estate like flipper investor on these platforms. I will be more known than all of you. And it's not like it was a ego thing. It was just like, because I believe this is smarter to do than like, okay, you guys can go keep getting more deals and like worry about that. That's cool. But I think this is smarter. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, like your dad, you saw your dad losing his house. My dad saw me losing my house. So in 2008, so my dad went and helped me pick up my stuff. So I remember I had a neighbor that used to get mad all the time. She was an older lady, and it was Sierra Madre. I don't know if you're familiar with Sierra Madre, but it's in Pasadena in the hills.
Okay.
So I was like the only Latino in that neighborhood, pretty much. Like everybody was like older white. And it was just that type of neighborhood, but I liked it because it was in the mountains, a lot of green. And I went there and I remember I was getting evicted. So I don't know if you've ever had a moment like that, but the cops go there and they open the door. And then I show up there with my brother, my dad, and Sil. And we are getting all our belongings out. So we have like a few hours to get all our stuff out. So you're being evicted. So I felt like your dad felt.
Yeah.
So it's like a really painful experience.
It's pride. Like it just destroys your everything.
And I remember before that came, I knew it was coming because I was in pain. Obviously, I knew I was under foreclosure. So I would go run around. I would do like 3-mile runs, and I would break down and cry like every run. I was always thinking like, will this be my last run? And obviously I could go there and run now. So it wasn't going to be like my last run unless something happened to me and I died or whatever. But I always ran and went on my run. And I would always ask myself, is this going to be my last run? But I was crying like a baby and just running, but nobody knew. But I was going through that pain, but I was just getting stronger and stronger. And then I think one of the things that made me powerful, but also it's like my biggest strength and my biggest weakness is that I just take huge risks.
Right.
And I've been like that. I've been really, really ambitious since I was a little kid. And I don't know how that came about, but I used to go paint houses with my dad in Beverly Hills, Bel Air. And I would go paint with him when I was 6. So I remember that one time he took me to a house. It was big mansion in Bel Air, and I saw a red car. So that's where the whole Ferrari thing started. So I saw a red Ferrari. And then I asked my dad a simple question. I asked him, hey, Dad, well, why are we coming from the ghetto and why do we live there? They sell drugs, there's shootings. Like, why are we coming here to this house and it's nice and everything is so green and big and this red car? I don't know, it was a Ferrari, But I'm like, how come we don't drive a car like this? And how come we don't live in a house like this? Because when you're a kid, you don't know any better. You're just like what's going on?
Yeah.
Like my 6-year-old, she's almost 6. She always tells me like, she just sees everything very easy. Like, yeah, Dad, well, just do it this way. So my dad tells me, hey, this is not for us. I don't know if you ever heard that before, but he just said, this is not for us. So then I questioned him, why not? And then he just told me, if you never quit and if you work harder than everybody, then maybe it could be for you. So then that's what triggered me not to quit the mortgage industry, because a lot of people got out of the mortgage industry in 2008 and they went to do insurances, life insurance, like other things, or got a job. But I decided to stay on it because I knew that I couldn't quit. And ever since then, since I was 6 and my dad told me that, I just don't quit. Like, and I know that no matter what gets thrown at me, like that, you can't quit.
That's crazy. You still remember that story. You know, like at 6 years old, that made such a profound impact on like your life as an adult. And I couldn't help by when you were saying that, thinking about my kids, and I'm like, man, like what am I going to be telling them that's going to like drastically impact their life forever? You know, like one of those experiences. But no, like I would say the most crushing experience I had, and embarrassing and whatever, was, you know, like first off, I got drafted, which was an amazing thing, but I got drafted so much lower than I thought. And that was like heartbreaking, because I was expecting to go in the top 10 rounds, and then it just snowballed and it was a whole bunch of crap. But then, you know, 3 years later, the Oakland A's released me. You know, they called me into the office, and, you know, I'm 23 years old, my entire life working for this. And they were like, yo, you know, we don't have a spot for you. You're not good enough. And we're going to have to release you. And, you know, you think as a 23-year-old, this is a little bit different than I think anyone else can really experience, in that you don't recover. Like sports have a limited lifespan. Yeah. You're done when you're done. It's not like real estate, which, you know, I love business, where you can start a new one, and it was like, you're done. I'm like, wow, this has been my identity like my whole life. Everyone knows me as like the best baseball player on the team and the guy, and, you know, it's done. Like my dream's over. And those few weeks were super like heartbreaking, because I just was like, I literally don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I've never planned for a plan B. And, you know, eventually I ended up signing with other teams, and I kept playing, trying to get back, and I wasn't successful in getting back, but, you know, I kept playing because I just loved the game of baseball. But, you know, I just remember even during my last season in 2017, like walking around the field, and I knew I was like going to get released again because I wasn't having a good year. And I just, but real estate was doing really well. Yeah. So I just remember at that point, I kind of had a different perspective of peace, where I was like, you know, like 4 years ago when I first got released, I thought it was the end of the world, and I wouldn't recover. And I got to play another few seasons, and, you know, I do have a plan B now, and a good thing going. And I just remember like walking through the field and like looking at everything with gratitude. I was like, this is going to be the last time I do this. And like, I'm at peace with it. Yeah. And I just knew, like, mindset wise, now looking back at it with hindsight, it's been 5 years. Like, all the lessons I learned from just literally making no money and pursuing a dream for 8 years made me who I am today. Because how many people would keep the same job making less than $1,500 a month for 8 years to pursue a dream? And then I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've yet to find someone who did. And so I'm like, that it makes sense why I can handle adversity better than most. Hey, if you're looking to grow your real estate investing business, whether you're just getting started trying to get your first deal, or you're trying to scale and get to the next level, you need to join us at Wealthy Investor. We've got events every single quarter that are absolutely crazy. We've got online coaching programs where we have Zoom calls and community every single week. We give you everything you need to know to start your business, scripts, processes, SOPs, all of it. It's for you. so that you can dominate. So if you want to learn more about how to join our community and be mentored by me and some of our top coaches and be around other students who are absolutely crushing it, go to wealthyinvestor.com, apply for a free call with my team. Once again, wealthyinvestor.com, apply for a call today. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the smartest business decision I've ever made was creating content. Ever since then, my businesses have skyrocketed, not only because we get a lot of views and we're able to turn those views into leads, which then turn into dollars, but it's also led to a ton of different business opportunities, investors, and also it's allowed me to hire A+ employees, all because I made the decision to create content. Now, here's the thing, most people have no idea where to begin. That changes with Wealthy Creator. Wealthy Creator is my coaching program for entrepreneurs who want to grow their personal brand on social media. And if you're listening to this, that's probably you. You probably realize you should be creating a podcast just like this one and developing your personal brand. We can help you. We have coaching programs, mentorships. In fact, we can even edit your content for you and run your social media account. It's absolutely crazy. So if you want to learn more about it, go to wealthycreator.io. You can book a free call with my team. So once again, that's wealthycreator.io. Start creating content today, building that brand, and I promise you, it'll be the best investment you ever make.
Yeah, I want to tell you an FHA quick story, but before that, I want to ask you a question about your wife, you and your wife.
Yeah.
So like, she's seen you pretty broke.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife has, she saw me lose it all.
Yeah.
Right. And she decided to stay with me. And now she's pregnant right now. You saw her.
Yep.
We're going to have our baby in Valentine's Day. And we have 2 little girls. One's going to be 6 and one's 3. And you also have your kids. Mm-hmm. You have your wife. And you know, we're getting older now.
Yeah.
So like we're you're a little younger than me, but we're getting older. We're not like in our early 20s and we have more experience.
Yeah.
What is your take on like how important is family to you? How important is your wife to you? And how important are your kids to you? Do you think that that's what drives you now? Or do you feel you're going to be married forever? Do you see, is one of your dreams to see like your kids, maybe go to college, or maybe you don't want them to go to college. Maybe you want them to run your business or one of your businesses. What is your take on family and your wife as a partner? Because you have a partner that has been there for you all this time.
Yeah.
And then there's other guys also that have a different take, that were, you know, maybe they're single, maybe they have a lot of different girls, they date a lot.
Right.
They don't have that girl, but I look at people that I respect, like for example Bobby Castro. I don't know if you met him. Bobby Castro, he has his wife. Grant has his wife. Patrick has his wife, and their wives have helped them grow the businesses.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's been important to you? Do you feel like you're gonna be married? You're gonna get old together, and then have your grandsons?
I would hope we go old together. That's the goal, anyways. Yeah. I mean, look, we got married young, and like I was mentioning before,
especially because of that, you got married at 19, right? You said.
Well, we met when she was 18, and we got married when she turned 21, like a week after she turned 21. But no, I mean, like, look, as Christians, I always talk about my faith a lot. You know, we're both Christian, and so we've made the covenant that we're together for life. And whenever we have problems or issues, we always look back to Christ as the center of, like, hey, this is what we're doing. It's so much bigger than just us.
Yeah.
And, you know, with everything I've ever done, she's always supported it, whether it's been playing baseball and not making any money, whether I started flipping couches and she was like, okay, like whatever, to then maxing out credit cards to flip houses, to then saying, hey, I'm going to do the social media thing. Like, you know, our family's probably going to get affected by this. And she's like, all right, let's do it, you know? And then just everything along the way, she's always supported. But, you know, to answer your question about like priorities, you know, I've always told guys this, like, I really feel like as my career goes along, my mission becomes more clear on what I'm supposed to do. And there's always different seasons of your life for things you're supposed to do. And, you know, so I went through the season of playing baseball and making nothing. I went through the season of maxing out credit cards and risking it all. I've went through the season of trying to figure out social media. I'm now going through the season of hey, I'm pushing this wealthy way message, and like I want people to live more abundant, fulfilled lives, and I want people to like really look at their priorities, because what I've just realized over the years talking to so many entrepreneurs is like, okay, I actually got this from a guy named King Keto. I don't know if you see him on Instagram.
I know him, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but we follow each other on Instagram.
Okay. So him and I did a live together, and he said something that really stood out to me. I was like, wow, that's really smart. He said, I've got this thing where you always revert to your standards. And he's like, the way I explain this is people have had aspirations to achieve certain things. You want to have a 6-pack. You want to make $1 million. You want to do whatever, right? But the reality is we all revert back to our standard, right? Of like, what I see for myself. It's like my minimum of what I'm willing to accept of myself. And I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I don't have a 6-pack right now because I'm okay with how I look. I would love to have a 6-pack, but it's not my standard where if I don't have it, I'm not going to be happy with myself. And so when I look at my standards that I've laid upon myself, I've always said from the beginning that, hey, if I truly value my relationship with God, what's the standard? What does it look like? Well, am I spending time with God every morning? Am I praying every day? Am I going to church? Am I serving others? Am I going on mission trips? If I'm not doing those, I cannot say that God's a priority in my life. He's just not. And the same thing is true with my wife and my kids. If I say that, hey, I'm going to spend every Friday night with my wife on date night. I am going to be home at 5:30, after work to be with my wife and kids before they go to bed. I'm going to bathe my kids every night. If I do that every night, it's because it's a standard for me.
Yeah.
Now, what I see is lots of people in business have aspirations. To them, it's an aspiration. I want to do that, but I can't because of XYZ. I want to make $1 million, but I can't because of this. I want to get closer to God this year, but they don't do it. And so it's like, for me, I don't judge people, but if you asked me to like consult you, if somebody asked me to consult them and they said, take a look at my life and like, this is what I believe. And I'm like, really? Well, what do your actions say? And it's like your actions reflect your standards and what you're willing to do and can't do. And so I guess for me at this point in my life, I've realized no matter how much success I may be sacrificing in business because of my decisions to not work weekends and my decisions to leave here, like it's okay, because my standard is not, I need to be the richest guy or the best guy at that.
Yeah.
My standard for myself has drastically changed. And like over the years, by maintaining that standard, even I had that same standard 8 years ago when I was making no money. It was like, yeah, I want to hang with my wife. I didn't have kids, but I want to like spend time with her. Mm-hmm. And then over the years, as we've gone along in our marriage and we've had kids, and it gets harder to maintain the standard because life gets more complex. We got to like get all these kids now. We got businesses going all. So it's like, it becomes way harder at that point. And that's when your standards are tested to what you're really willing to do and what's really important to you. Yeah. I was asking some people in one of my other groups, I'm not going to say which group it was, but, I straight up asked her, I said, hey, what's most important to you? Like, is it your business or is it your husband? And she was like, honestly, I can't say. Like, I've worked really hard at my career, and if I had to choose, I don't know. And I was like, okay, well, at least but don't say your husband is the most important if he's not. Yeah. Because that's an aspiration. Yeah. So I was really blown away when I started thinking about things like that. When he mentioned it, I was like, that makes complete sense. We always revert down to our standard, but we always want to be more. Mm-hmm. Like I want to be more. I do want to have a 6-pack, but like, I also know I'm like, I look pretty good the way I am. Like, I don't need a 6-pack. You should build it. You have a gym right here? Not in this office, no. You should build a gym in the office. I know. I'm thinking about putting one in my my new house. So yeah, I might do it. Well, you know what? I used to do that in the house, but I went to Andy Frisella's office, headquarters. Okay. I've been to a lot of headquarters of $1 billion companies. Because like that is my next target right now. The companies I want to build them to $1 billion, and I'll tell you more about that right now. But
but I visited their headquarters, and I noticed that all these billion-dollar companies, they have a gym, a full gym in their office, and it's part of their culture. And then everybody works out, like people work out like at different times, but they work out together. They work out like at different times. But I noticed that every company that I went and visited, they had a gym. Wow. I went to Andy Frisella's First Forum's office, right? And then I went to see UWM, which is another lender. It's one of the biggest lenders. Mortgage. Yeah, one of the biggest lenders in the nation. And they have, I think they just bought the Phoenix Suns. Oh, okay. They have a gym in their office, basketball court, obviously. But all these companies, they have a gym. So I started, and I realized that. And before I used to work out at home, but it wasn't the same. And something about like, you know, the kids, I have a dog, I have nanny coming in, housekeeper. It's just not the same. And Bobby told me something. Bobby sold a company for $1 billion.
Yep.
So I went. They have a gym also. So I just asked enough, and I saw enough, and I said I gotta have a gym in the office, because now like my controller would go there, processing department goes there, marketing team goes there, and it doesn't take me away from the office. So I'm there. So I go there. I'm there. I have showers, locker rooms. Well, you saw it.
Yeah.
And that has helped me out a lot. But I think it could be, if you're open to it, I think a nice gym here would be nice for you.
Yeah. No, I've thought about it, and obviously we haven't done it, but I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just I'm an interesting guy with the gym because I always work out really early. So I work out at 6 right now, but I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, yeah, it would be nice to work out like in between a podcast. I'm like, but then I'm all sweaty and like, you know. That's
why you need to shower.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'd have to build a shower then. There's no shower in this place. You know what? Maybe for sure. So like we have a few years left at this place. I think on our next lease, because my one of my goals in our next office, I want to build it from scratch. Yeah. And I want to build like a training room, all that stuff. Yeah. So a gym can definitely be part of it.
Yeah. So Ryan, one of the things that I'm focused on right now that I want to get your input to, because you have a lot of companies. I see a lot of companies that you have, right?
Yeah.
I made a decision that in the next 4 to 5 years, like I just want to exit no matter what, and I want that number to be a B.
Okay.
With a B, and I want to focus only on the companies that I have now, and I don't want to open anything else.
Okay.
I just want to be super focused, and Driven had a huge part in the growth of the companies, and I see Brad doing like solar insurance. He does solar. He does real solar, real insurance. He has like a bunch of companies that he opened with his brand, Real. So, and he told me about it. Do this, and Dan Fleischman also brought it up. And I made the decision. I just don't want to open anything else, because it's just like you said, a lot of things going on, and then the family and everything. So we have the mortgage. It was a mortgage guy. It became the mortgage guys, and now it's becoming TMG Lending. And then when we opened that company, we said, well, if we had real estate, then it could work together.
Right.
And then my way of getting realtors was, let's do a 100% commission with a flat fee.
Yep.
But I went away from that now. So now it's just a brokerage where it's a split. We have splits for agents, and that's the way we want to build it and grow it, because we want to have a company that's worth something. We don't want to just make
$500.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and obviously if you want to grow the company, you're not going to grow a company making a little flat fee on.
Trust me. That's why I shut mine down.
So I figured that's a bright idea. So I did mortgage, Ambient. So then we switched it, and we adjusted a few things, and then I was stuck, right? So then I said, how do I grow this? How do I become more known, build my personal brand, and become known? I want to be like the Mexican Tony Robbins. And for the longest, you know, I wanted, I was talking to Grant, and I'm like, hey, I want to speak at the 10X. I want to do this. So I spoke to a few people that had events back then. I'm talking about 7 years ago. And I just never got the opportunity for whatever reason. And I said, well, if they're not going to give me the opportunity, then I'm just going to create my own. And then Brad said, go for it, create your own. So I came up with the name Driven. So 7 years ago.
What does Driven mean?
Driven is what it's your drive, but let me get more into it. So like when you wake up, my drive is I want to be like that person that changes the world. I want to be that person that's an influence that lives beyond his lifetime. So somebody remembers me because I made a big difference in my kids. I was a good role model. I built companies, and I'm very I have this love for the Latino community.
Yeah,
because that's where I came from. Like I came from Mexico, and I didn't speak English till I was 6.
Right.
And then I learned English, and I've always had an accent. And then I forgot Spanish, and then my Spanish is kind of messed up, and my English as well. I don't know if I can cuss on your podcast. I don't want to say that, but so both of them are kind of like weird, right? But I was able to start a business, and I figured it out, and my drive that keeps me is that pushes me is just being that good influence and being a good role model and being remembered past my lifetime. But the drive is what keeps you going. And I could also add my kids.
Right.
Like when my girls keep me going. Like when I don't have anything left in the tank, when I'm a little bit worn out, when I see my girls, like they keep me going. Like they drive me where I have no option. Like I just have to keep going. So that's what drive means to me. And if you're a driven individual, I think it lasts more than being motivated. A lot of people could be motivated and they get inspired for a little bit, but when you're driven, I just think that's something that stays forever. And that's, I was watching a video and I kept hearing the word drive. You need drive and drive and drive. And I just said, well, I told Sil, hey babe, let's call it drive. And she was like, drive? And she said, it's missing something. It's missing a letter. Okay, driven. So we came up with the name Driven. And that's how it all started. And the weirdest thing is that I had a mortgage company and a real estate company that I was, breaking even and negative, paycheck to paycheck, making a few million and spending a few million. And just, it was like, I was better off just being a loan officer for a company or being a realtor for a company and not having to deal with all the other stuff you deal with business, compliance, taxes, lawsuits, compliance, insurances, and many other expenses that I can go on and on, where you're making less money than working for a company that takes all the risks.
Right.
So I needed to do something. And before that, a little bit before that, I got a Ferrari and I used that for marketing purposes, even though I could barely afford it. But I got the Ferrari and I had the Ferrari already. But then I said, I need an event because I saw what Grant was doing with 10X. And because I didn't get opportunities to speak, even though I kept trying, I said, I'm just going to create my own event. I didn't have the money for the event. So I said, well, let's just commit to having it. And I told Sil, are you down for it? Okay, we're going to have it at the Ritz. The Ritz needs half of the deposit. Not half. They need a deposit of 25 grand. And then my speaker, he needed a half 50% of the deposit, which was 25K. Mm-hmm. And that speaker was Grant. And I was just thinking I needed to create my own event. So I knew that I needed somebody with an audience. So I don't have the 50, I had the 50 grand, but that's all I had. So I went to my buddy and I asked him, and he was working for the company at the time. And I asked another buddy too. And I asked him, hey, you want to go 50-50? I have this great idea. It's gonna be killer. We're gonna make a lot of money. We're gonna grow it, and it's gonna help us promote the company.
Right.
And I said, well, we need to put 25K here, 25K here. You want to do half and half? Right. And then I got the same responses from both. You know what? You don't have experience. It's not worth it. It's too much money. It's better just don't do it. Or I'll speak for free. I'll be there. Just I don't want to do it. So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna do it anyways. So I went to Chase and I opened. I don't know if you knew about this, but you're pretty good with credit cards from what you told me. But I went to Chase and I learned this trick in another event that I went to. And if you go to the traveling cards, like the hotels and the traveling cards, mm-hmm. you could open Southwest, United. You could open a Marriott card, Ritz card. So And then you could get all those limits, which are higher limits because they're for traveling. And then you combine those limits into you transfer those limits into a Chase Freedom card that's 15 months, no interest. So I did that credit card thing.
Yep.
And I ended up with like an $80,000 credit card with 15 months, no interest.
Yeah.
And then I did the same thing with Sil. And so I created money because our credit wasn't that bad. So we got approved for that. And then I went to Ritz, put 25 grand down. And then I went to I sent the 25K down for the deposit for the speaking fee.
Yep.
And then I said, I'm going to sell some tickets. And then I literally got all the ideas from that event, and I had my super VIP tickets, VIP ticket, executive ticket, and I priced them out high because I knew that price is just made up. That's what I learned from my mentor at the time. And I said, so I just did that, and then I started putting out the tickets to sell them, and I started promoting it. 48 hours passed by, no sales. And I'm like, did I just mess up? Because I didn't have money in the bank.
Right.
I had very little. And those were reserves for the companies. So I'm like, what's going to happen? Like this event's going to cost a lot of money. There's things that we want to include. And because we wanted to do it, like we wanted to have a bar, lighting, and a bunch of things, and like an experience. So long story short, after 49 hours later, me and Sil are at a restaurant, and I get a notification. Boom! Somebody bought a super VIP ticket, $2,000. So I'm like, now I'm $2,000 less in the hole, and I get so excited with those $2,000. And then after that, I just started doing whatever it took. I started going live, even though I had like no viewers. I started just posting, and we sold out the event, 500 people.
Wow!
And that was our first event 7 years ago. And now we're going on Driven 7. And it has just grown every year more and more and more. And then when COVID happened and they shut down all the hotels, we did it outdoors. So we never stopped having the events. And because of those events, it opened so many gates to get more business for the mortgage guys, for Ambiance, which led to opening an escrow company. And now it's just allowing us right now to not survive, but thrive in these moments, because all mortgage companies and real estate companies are having a extremely difficult time. And a lot of those don't have, I think all of them, or you tell me if you've seen one, Ryan, that is big on social media, like a real estate company or a mortgage company. I know the Goliaths like Rocket Mortgage, Keller Williams, they have other kinds of marketing, but they're not like promoting on social media. But social media as a startup company, like I don't see anybody with that influence. So that is helping us right now take over the market over there in California. And you spoke about it. It's going to get very tough for people. I heard your conversation earlier.
Yeah.
And like 2023, like how are you going to win? And if nobody knows who you are, and then the cool thing for the people that are in the good spot right now with social media and marketing, you're not gonna have any competition. Like this recession is making a lot of people fade very quickly, and I'm very excited for 2023. I think that if I wouldn't have invested in FHA properties, they got in a 3-unit, still got a 4-unit, I wouldn't have the reserves to survive when things got really tough, because it got nasty after Driven 1, Driven 2. Everything we needed money. Yeah. Because we made mistakes in business like everybody else. Right. And I think very important for people that start a business, you need a lot of reserves, because reserves are going to save you. And I didn't have reserves, but I had $2 million in equity in total with all the properties that I had to sell. And because I did that, it allowed me to get through those times and grow it to where it is now. And it's a completely different life. And I think the experience that I have and just the deadline that I have, like 4 to 5 years, Ryan, I want to be just being like, hey, Ryan, you know what? I got the jet over there. Let's fly. Let's roll to Milan, and I want to go have some brunch over there in Milan. So
that'd be sick.
So yeah.
How are you going to get there? I want to know the plan. What's the 5-year plan? You're going to focus strictly on what you have. That's what it sounded like. Yeah. You don't want to get caught up in all these different businesses.
I don't. No.
So you're just growing the brokerage and growing mortgage and Driven. Those 3.
Those three, and escrow is tied to it. So it's like the vertical integration, but like with more real estate, there's more mortgages and there's more escrows.
Hey,
but,
I just saw like, these guys with Rocket Mortgage and UWM, like, I mean, these guys, billions and billions of dollars starting these massive mortgage companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had Neil Patel on the show recently, and he was actually telling me the same thing. He goes, hey, Ryan, what you should look at if you want to become a billionaire is the TAM, the total addressable market. And he's like, so for you, the amount of people who want to invest in real estate and learn it as education is not that big. And I'm like, you're right. He's like, you can definitely obviously make lots of money, but it's not $1 billion thing. And he's like, think about in real estate, what are $1 billion things? It's not education. It's not flipping houses. It's not wholesaling. None of those get you to $1 billion. He's like, you could raise money and buy lots of apartments and things that could get you to $1 billion, right? He's like, my buddy owns a mortgage company and they do $500 million in fees every year, not loans originated, fees.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, think about the TAM of mortgage. Everybody gets a mortgage. You got refis, you got primary residences, you've got investment loans and all this. And he's like, so start thinking about it in that context of like what has really big markets.
Yeah. So let me tell you one quick thing. Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is the Goliath. Obviously, like he's, would you say he's the biggest guy in that space?
In education, yeah, probably.
Yeah. Tony Robbins. I know Dean Graziosi too. Mm-hmm. I had him at the last event. But what do I have? Like, what's my superpower? What do I have that Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone don't have?
You have a mortgage company. You have
there's
Latino.
something. There you go.
Yeah.
So my secret weapon, which is not a secret, but it's not. I mean, nobody can copy it. And what I. And I'm not saying nobody in a arrogant way. Like there could be another Latino out there that they could go for it, and maybe they could. But Ed Milet, I know all these people in like very in person very well. They're friends with, like, Ed Milet's a friend of mine. Ed Milet, Patrick Bet-David, Brad Lee, even Grant I think told me. But there's been quite a few people. Bobby Castro. But they have all told me the same thing. Like, Albert, like you have something that is different. That if you just focus on that, you could take over. And then also, I don't know if you knew this, but you know that 70% of the future homeowners in the US in the next 17 years are going to be Latino.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
70% of, because the population is getting bigger and bigger, and the Latinos are there's a lot of Latinos that were teenagers that are getting in, that are now millennials or becoming that are getting into that age where they're buying.
Right.
So from a like I saw it somewhere, and I got the data from a place that's really credible. I'll share it with you later. 70% of the future homeowners in the next 17 years are going to be Latinos by 2040.
Wow.
So and my metrics that I track, 90% of the people that go to driven events are Latino millennials.
So they're resonating.
90% of the of mortgage guys, of our clients, of ambiance, 90%. I could be off by maybe 88 or maybe somewhere around there, but about 90%. And I'm seeing that more and more and more and more. They're Latino millennials. So that's who I attract. And a lot of those people tell me, you know what? I love Tony Robbins, but I love Grant Cardone, but you're closer to my age and you're Latino. So like I see you and me. Like, you give me hope that if you are able to do what you're doing, like you live in Bel Air, you're flying private, you have the cars, you have the companies, and you're literally you were called wetback. You couldn't speak English. You went through all those issues in life. You had all those problems. You overcame, and you made it happen. And hey, I'm here, and I'm fighting, and I'm doing it right now. Like I'm winning right now, and I'm not backing away from the recession. Like I'm going straight at it. And I'm also like, with my experience, especially from 2008, and then the relationships, the resources now, the infrastructure that we built, like I am excited as can be for these upcoming couple of years that are going to be, I think, the biggest opportunity for a lot of us to go out there and give it more. Like even if we're working hard, give it another hour a day, give it another 30 minutes a day, because the competition out there is dying out, and it's a great opportunity to just take over the market. And if I try to compete with Brad Lee or Grant Cardone or Tony Robbins with the people with their audience, I'm gonna lose. But if I double triple down on my audience, I'm gonna win. And then knowing that the future of the U.S., a big part of the future are the Latinos,
right?
And also the when I go live now. And I've been building like all different platforms, because you can't rely on one. I think you would agree on that. I go live and I'm doing it in English, right? And then I get people from my Spanish YouTube channel.
Right.
I get people in Spanish on TikTok. I get people in Spanish and they ask me questions. And then I'll just shift to Spanish and I speak Spanish 100%.
Right.
I have an accent in Spanish too, but I talk good. So I start talking to them in Spanish and then I convert them. And then I'm converting the Spanish speakers and the English speakers. So I think that's going to be a big, that's going to be something huge. And I think that's something to pay attention to, because Patrick Bet-David sold his company. You know, I think for $250 million, more or less. And his entire company, like 90% of his people, I wouldn't say 90%, but maybe 80%, maybe 90%. We would have to find that out. But I know that a large percentage, maybe I'm pretty sure that it's about 80%, are also Latino millennials.
Wow.
Look at PHP. They're all Latinos, they're all millennials. And the most powerful ones are the ladies. And I have a lot of powerful ladies in our real estate company.
Not even Latino. It's just he's brown. He's a minority.
But he noticed that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, because I sat down with him 8 years ago, and I got those 4 coaching sessions for a really, really nice price. And we were talking about that Latinos, millennials.
Yeah, Patrick, a smart dude.
Yeah.
Man.
And how the woman, like, I like dealing with women a lot better. I don't know if that's the case with you here, but I deal with a lot of sales agents.
Right.
A lot of sales agents, big egos, divas.
Yep.
And it takes a lot of energy to be able to help them. And the women are so much easier to deal with. They take leadership. They're coachable. Yeah. And with the men, what happens is some of them, they have really strong egos, and sometimes it doesn't work.
Right.
And sometimes it just takes a lot of energy to continue to re-enroll them. That's what I learned from experience. And we lost a few, but I wouldn't say we lost a few, because now they're not doing well.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of these people, they just think that I know how to do it, I can do it better. And then they go out there and they test the waters.
Right.
And they don't have a Ryan Pineda that's flowing them power. They don't have an Albert that's flowing them power. And they realize that, hey, damn, I was better off where I was at. And that's something that I had a conversation also with John Maxwell. So like all these guys, Oscar de la Hoya is big, and like I became his friend too. So I make all of these people my friends. I get their cell phones. I get really close to them.
Yeah.
To the point where like they're picking me up. They stay at Brad's house.
Yeah.
John Maxwell, he couldn't make it to he was going to make it to our boot camp, and something happened with his plane. So I sent him a private plane to pick him up and bring him to the event. So it ended up costing me like double or more. But I made it happen, and then I created that relationship with him.
Yeah.
But like Tim Grover, and I could go on and on. But all these people, I think one thing that everybody can take away is like when you go do a podcast. Like if somebody comes to a podcast with you, like don't do it Zoom, because you're not gonna create a relationship through Zoom.
Yeah.
Like go in person, meet the person, make them your friend, and hang out, make them like you, get them to like you. And then you're going to create a relationship. And then guess what? Then Orion's going to introduce you to another relationship. And then you're going to get introduced to another relationship. And that's what happened it started with Grant. He introduced me to Brad. Brad introduced me to Ty Lopez. That's another one. So all these people, I created a relationship with them, which opened up so many opportunities for me. And I think that alone, that social media and the marketing, just being exposed to the masses, it made a huge difference. And then I think everybody should be watching out for the Latino millennials. And I'm talking about the Latino American millennials. Yeah. There's a difference between the Latinos from Colombia or Argentina or in other parts of the world to the Latino Americans that are here in the US, because those people are buyers. And when I'm getting people from Driven, I'm getting buyers, sellers. Forget about just coaching programs or training or Driven. So there's no mortgage company or real estate company that has the Driven funnel, something like that's just flowing power. So right now,
that's why I always joke that, I'm Latino when I need to be.
Yeah, you look Latino.
I know. People are like, you asked me that. You're like, you Latino? And I'm like, who's asking? But no, I agree with you, man. I agree. It's something our team's working on too. I see that. I know I could be like literally a celebrity in the Philippines. And so we're going to get language for Tagalog. And we're going to make a Spanish channel too.
Yeah.
Just to help the Latinos. Like, even though I don't speak Spanish, like I could learn Spanish, but.
How do you think that works though? Because what I noticed that works very good for me is that I start speaking in Spanish myself, and it's me because it's my personality and everything. Because I know Patrick does it like in Russian and a bunch of other languages. Well, he gets a translator.
Yeah.
He gets the voice.
And I think that's what I'm going to do.
Why don't you just learn it?
I should. I was actually thinking this the other day, like for one of my goals for 2023 is learning a new language. So the last year and a half, my goal was to become a scratch golfer, and I did it. And I just practice golf every day. Mm-hmm. Now I'm fighting, so I'm practicing boxing, just for fun. Like I just want to challenge myself for new things.
Yeah.
And language is one that I definitely want to learn. I would learn Spanish before I learn Tagalog because it's way more useful.
Here, yeah.
But also, I'm Filipino, and I know I could be the guy in the Philippines if I really took it serious. Like it'd be like me and Manny Pacquiao. So we'll see.
Yeah,
it's something that I agree with you. I think your plan is solid with going after that market.
Yeah,
and you can do it. They can't.
Yeah,
and the funny thing about Latinos is they're very cultural together.
Yeah.
It's like Latinos trust Latinos.
Yeah. And I've very loyal people.
Yeah. And I've seen it happen with
Filipinos.
Yeah. Filipinos are the same. Even in my community, we have a ton of Hawaiians. I'm not Hawaiian, but there's a lot of Filipinos in Hawaii. And so they all join my stuff. Shout out to all of our wealthy investor Filipinos and Hawaiians and everyone. But you see it in the Black community too. Like they're super supportive of each other. So I think narrowing in on that is super smart, man.
Yeah, and then a quick thing that I forgot, Ryan, on the companies. One thing that I'm doing that I also learned from Patrick and other mentors, Bobby, equity. Yeah. So what I'm creating, because it's a private company, and all the companies I started from scratch. Mm-hmm. So I learned a powerful lesson from very successful people that you grow your companies as much as you can with your own money before ever raising money. Because then your company is worth so much more, and you just have to continue to grow your company, grow the revenue, grow better the margins.
Yep.
And I've been doing that. So till today, like I haven't raised or borrowed or nothing, not $1 for any of the company. All the companies I opened from scratch with my own money, me and my wife's hard work, and we are giving equity. We believe in equity. I know I have a friend, her name is Cindy Eckert. She also sold a company for $1 billion. And everybody that has sold companies for $1 billion, they give equity to their people. So when they sell the company, everybody gets a piece. A lot of people get a little piece, and a few people get a big piece.
Yep.
So for me, I just want to get, I want to get my piece. I don't know if it's 70%. I don't know if it's 80%. Yeah. Maybe it's less. But the rest, I want everybody to get a piece of it. And I want everybody to get even a little piece. And then a few people are going to get a huge piece.
Yep.
So
that's how I built mine.
Yeah. So I think that's very important for people building a company. You have to build a company to sell it. Because if you're going to build a mortgage broker shop just to make a commission or keep or you think you're going to keep 100% commission, you're not. You're going to actually keep less or break even, because building a business based on my experience, like it's a nightmare that never ends. like I have nightmares about my business always and still, and I sleep it, I dream it, I wake up to it. I'm a slave. I'm the real employee of my companies, not my employees, because I'm the one that's there to help them. So like I do everything, like, and people don't see that, like the late nights, the early mornings, the weekends, a lot of things behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And if you build a company just because you think you're going to keep more profit, it's the wrong way to start a company. I learned it through my experience that if you're going to build a company, you have to have an exit plan from the beginning. So I'm going to build this company because this company is going to be worth X amount to get there. Okay, what does Rocket Mortgage have? Rocket Mortgage, they funded $300 billion last year. They have 10,000 employees. They have their facility. They have their C-suite. They have all this. Margins are this. All that stuff. You got to look into that, because if you're going to start a company, why not think big as opposed to just start a little mom and pop shop? Yep. I just don't see the point of a mom and pop shop. For what? If that makes you happy, then so be it. But you would make more money just working for somebody else, or maybe partnering with somebody else. But I just believe that you build a company with a lot of people, but you do have to have an action plan. You have to have the strategies. You have to have the blueprint. And the best way to do that is hire somebody like Patrick Bet-David, like Bobby Castro, like somebody that has exited on the deal.
Right.
Not somebody that is just a coach, because there's a lot of coaches out there, but I want to learn from people that have gotten the results.
Right.
And I'm learning a lot from you. I ask you little questions, and I have my poker face most of the time, but I listen. Like I listen, mm-hmm. and you give me, like, you say a lot of very valuable things, and I take those things, and I'm like, I'm gonna go and apply this on whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
So you're awesome, Ryan, and I just wanted to tell you that you're helping a lot of people. In your YouTube channel is amazing. Your all the data, all the content you put out on TikTok, like, it's very easy to understand for the masses, and I think you're making a lot of people better with your message.
I appreciate that, bro. It means a lot, and I know you're doing the same, and it's great, dude. I'm glad we finally connected a couple weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to everything we're gonna be doing together in the coming years, man. It's super inspiring, dude. So I'm gonna make sure everyone who's listening and watching, make sure you go follow Albert, go check out the Driven Academy, and
the Driven event. Maybe I could have you at the next one.
Yeah.
Driven event.
Yeah. Let's make it happen. So guys, hope you enjoyed this episode. Been a lot of fun, Albert. We'll catch you guys later. Peace. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that podcast. Thanks for making it to the end. The good news is I've got another one that I know you're going to like, and all you got to do is click it right here. Linking it right here. All you got to do is just click it, and you're going to see this new episode that you're going to love.